Long before Bram Stoker's Count Dracula cast his shadow over Victorian literature, the fear of the undead walked among the living in very real and terrifying ways. Across Eastern Europe, from the remote villages of Romania to the ancient settlements of Poland, communities lived in genuine terror of creatures they believed could rise from their graves to torment the living. This was not mere folklore or entertainment. It was a matter of life and death that drove people to take extraordinary measures to protect themselves from what they perceived as a very real threat. Recent archaeological discoveries have unearthed compelling evidence of these ancient fears, revealing graves that tell a haunting story of humanity's desperate attempts to keep the dead firmly buried. Stakes driven through hearts, stones placed in mouths, and bodies weighed down with rocks. These are not scenes from a horror movie, but actual burial practices that archaeologists continue to uncover across Europe, providing us with a chilling glimpse into our ancestors' supernatural beliefs. The vampire legends that predate Dracula by centuries were born from a complex mixture of religious beliefs, medical misunderstanding, and psychological terror. In medieval Europe, the concept of the undead was deeply intertwined with Christian theology and pagan traditions. The vampire, or vampir, as it was originally known in Slavic languages, was believed to be a soul that could not find peace in death, often due to improper burial rites, excommunication from the church, or a particularly sinful life. These creatures were described differently than the sophisticated aristocrats popularized by modern fiction. Medieval vampires were typically depicted as bloated, ruddy corpses with blood seeping from their mouths and noses. They were said to visit their families and neighbors at night, bringing disease, nightmares, and death to entire communities. The fear was so pervasive that it influenced burial customs across vast regions of Europe for hundreds of years. Archaeological evidence from sites across Poland, Bulgaria, and other Eastern European countries has revealed numerous vampire burials dating from the medieval period through the 18th century. In a remarkable discovery in the Polish town of Drawsko, archaeologists uncovered the remains of several individuals buried with iron sickles placed across their necks and stones positioned over their hearts. The intention was clear: to prevent these individuals from rising and returning to harm the living. Perhaps even more striking was the discovery in Sozopol, Bulgaria, where archaeologists found over 100 skeletons with iron rods driven through their chests. These burials, dating from the 13th to 14th centuries, provide concrete evidence that vampire fears were widespread and taken seriously enough to warrant such extreme posthumous treatment. The individuals subjected to these unusual burial practices were often those who died under suspicious circumstances or who were considered outsiders in their communities. Plague victims, people who died violent deaths, individuals with physical deformities, or those who simply didn't conform to social norms were all potential candidates for vampire burial. The practice reflected not only supernatural beliefs, but also social anxieties and the human need to explain unexplainable phenomena such as disease outbreaks and mysterious deaths. What makes these discoveries particularly fascinating is how they reveal the practical side of supernatural belief. The methods used to restrain these suspected vampires show remarkable consistency across different regions and time periods. Stakes through the heart, decapitation, stones in the mouth to prevent feeding, and restraints to limit movement all demonstrate a systematic approach to what these communities saw as a genuine public health crisis. The scientific understanding of decomposition was limited in medieval times, and the natural processes of decay often reinforced vampire beliefs. When graves were reopened, the discovery of bodies that appeared well preserved had shifted position, or showed signs of bloating and blood pooling, was interpreted as evidence of vampiric activity. What we now understand as normal post-mortem changes were then seen as proof that the dead were indeed walking among the living. These vampire burials also reveal the intersection of folk belief and religious authority. While the Catholic Church officially rejected vampire beliefs as superstition, local clergy often participated in or sanctioned these practices, recognizing their importance in maintaining community stability and morale during times of crisis. The transition from these ancient, terrifying revenants to the romanticized vampires of literature represents a fundamental shift in how we understand and process fear. While Dracula gave us a sophisticated, seductive monster, the archaeological record shows us that our ancestors faced something far more primal, the absolute terror of death itself, refusing to remain final. These discoveries remind us that behind every legend lies a kernel of human truth. The vampire burials scattered across Europe are not just archaeological curiosities. They are windows into the fears, beliefs, and desperate hopes of people who lived in a world where the boundary between life and death seemed far more permeable than we might imagine today.